The United States and Iraq may have just entered a completely new phase in their relationship. After more than 2 decades of war, military operations and security cooperation, Washington and Baghdad are now talking business, oil and investment. At a bilateral meeting held at the White House on July 14, that was yesterday, US President Donald Trump and Iraq's new Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi announced that all remaining US troops will have to leave Iraq by September 30th this year. But this wasn't just about ending a military mission. The meeting also produced major energy commitments, economic agreements, and a roadmap that could reshape Iraq's role in the wider US-Iran rivalry. To understand these talks, we first need to go back to 2003. That year, the United States invaded Iraq under President George Bush. Washington argued that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction and posed a threat to international security. Saddam's government was overthrown, but the promised weapons were never found. Instead, Iraq entered years of instability, insurgency, and sectarian violence. American troops stayed in Iraq long after the invasion, helping build Iraqi security forces and later joining the fight against ISIS after the terror group captured large parts of the country in 2014. Although Iraq officially declared victory over ISIS in 2017, thousands of US troops remained to train Iraqi forces and support counter-terrorism operations. Now, 23 years after the invasion, that chapter is finally coming to an end. But today's Iraq is dealing with a very different challenge. While ISIS has largely been defeated, another issue has become central. That is the growing influence of Iran-backed arms group operating inside Iraq. Many of these militias became powerful during the war against ISIS. However, several factions have maintained close ties with Tehran and have repeatedly launched attacks on US bases and American personnel in Iraq, especially during periods of tension between the US and Iran. Those attacks became even more significant after the recent US-Iran conflict. As Washington and Tehran confronted each other, Iraq increasingly became one of the battlegrounds where that rivalry played out. From the American perspective, Iraq could no longer remain a safe haven for armed groups aligned with Iran. And that's where Washington began increasing pressure on Baghdad. The Trump administration imposed sanctions on businesses linked to some of these militias, designated several armed factions as foreign terrorist organizations, tightened financial restrictions, and even used Iraq's dependence on the US-controlled dollar system as leverage. At various points, Washington also threatened restrictions affecting Iraq's oil revenues unless Baghdad took stronger action against these armed troops. In simple terms, the message was clear. If Iraq wanted stronger economic ties with the US, it also had to bring all weapons under the control of the Iraqi state. That brings us to Iraq's new Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi. Unlike many previous Iraqi leaders, al-Zaidi comes from a business background rather than a political one. More importantly, he has enjoyed open support from President Donald Trump.
Why? Because we have a tremendous chemistry together. The Prime Minister of Iraq has been amazing. He won an election that a lot of people didn't anticipate could be won by anybody else other than another person who was not, in my opinion, a good person. Not good for America. I don't think good for Iraq. And I played a role in, it was very important to me to have somebody get in there that can do the job and do it well. And we have a fantastic champion, a new champion. And he won the election very soundly, very conclusively, and he wasn't favored. But by the time they got to...
Earlier this year, Trump publicly opposed former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki returning to power, arguing that Maliki was too closely aligned with Iran for his liking. Soon after, Maliki withdrew from the race, clearing the way for al-Zaidi to become Prime Minister. That political backing has now translated into a much closer relationship between Washington and Baghdad. During Tuesday's meeting, Trump praised al-Zaidi, calling him a fantastic champion. He also made it clear where he sees the future of this relationship. According to Trump, Iraq has tremendous potential because of its oil, and the United States intends to do a lot of deals with them.
Has tremendous potential because of their oil and because of other things, but because of their oil. And we're going to be doing a lot of deals. We're going to create a lot of jobs for both countries, and we're going to be taking out a lot of oil. A lot of oil is coming out, and the American companies are doing it.
His message was simple: less focus on military operations, more focus on investment, energy, and business. Trump even said that a lot more Iraqi oil would be brought to market through future cooperation. Prime Minister al-Zaidi echoed that vision. He described the visit as the beginning of a new economic partnership, saying that US-Iraq relations were moving away from a military relationship toward an economic one. The Iraqi delegation discussed attracting American investment into Iraq's oil, gas, and power sectors, expanding production from major oil fields and reviving important energy infrastructure. For Iraq, these investments are badly needed. The country says the war against ISIS caused more than $400 billion in damage, with many families still displaced years later. Al-Zaidi also used the visit to push for a larger oil production quota within OPEC, arguing that Iraq deserves a fairer share so it can finance reconstruction.
We are one of the countries that established OPEC.
لكن نريد حقنا وحصة منصفة للعراق.
However, we need like a fair share for Iraq.
العراق حارب داعش
Iraq fought ISIS
والإرهاب بأجمعه
and terrorism at all.
وبدعم الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
Support of the United States of America.
وهذه الحرب مع داعش
This fight with ISIS
كلفتنا نفقات كبيرة
cost us like huge amounts of money.
ودمرت البنى التحتية
And
العراقية.
destroyed the Iraqi infrastructure.
مقدار الضرر اللي أصاب
The
العراق
damage that really was against Iraq
أكثر من 400 مليار دولار.
is more than $400 billion.
لليوم بعض العراقيين مدن مدمرة
Until today, like some Iraqi cities are totally destroyed.
ويسكنون في
They're
مخيمات.
like live in camps.
والآن لدي خطة أعيدهم إلى دورهم.
I have a plan to get them back to their homes.
نريد حصة منصفة
We
للعراق.
need a fair share.
Perhaps the most significant announcement, however, concerned security. Both leaders confirmed that remaining US forces will leave Iraq by September 30th. At the same time, al-Zaidi pledged that by that very deadline, all armed groups operating outside government control would either surrender their weapons or face prosecution.
According to the program of the government,
هو حصر السلاح بيد الدولة.
is to restrict the possession of weapons to the state.
وهذه نقطة أساسية
And this is a basic point.
ولدي قرار بها غير قابل للخيار.
And this is like a decision, it's not an option.
تم استلام
We received
أسلحة كثيرة من قبل بعض الفصائل
weapons by different factions,
واللي يسلم سلاحه
and whoever surrender his weapon
ويتحول إلى جهة سياسية
turned
ومدنية.
into like a political or civilian.
من ناحيتنا سيتم التعاون معه.
We will cooperate with them.
بعد 30/9
After the 30th of September,
لا حاجة لوجود أي
there's
فصائل
no any need for the presence of any faction,
لكون الفصائل
because factions
هي حاجة وليس محنة
is a need, it's not a profession.
وماكو مبرر لبقائهم بعد
There's no
30/9.
any justification for their existence after the 30th of September.
If implemented successfully, that would mark one of the biggest shifts in Iraq's security landscape since the defeat of ISIS. Whether Baghdad can actually disarm these powerful militias remains uncertain. Several Iran-backed groups have already rejected the outcome of al-Zaidi's Washington visit. So the real test begins after the cameras stop rolling. The bigger picture is this. Iraq sits between two powerful rivals, the United States and Iran. It depends on Washington for financial access, investment, and international support. At the same time, it shares deep political, economic, and religious ties with neighboring Iran. Balancing both sides has never been easy. But after the recent US-Iran conflict, that balancing act has become even harder. This week's meeting suggests that Iraq is trying to strengthen its partnership with the United States without completely severing ties with Tehran. Whether it can maintain that balance will determine not just Iraq's future, but also the stability of the wider Middle East. So while headlines focus on troop withdrawals and oil deals, this meeting was really about something much bigger. It marked the formal end of America's 23-year military mission in Iraq, the beginning of a new economic partnership, and a fresh attempt to pull Iraq away from becoming another battlefield in the US-Iran confrontation. The agreements announced in Washington could reshape Iraq's economy. But whether they reshape Iraq's politics and security will depend on what happens before September 30th, when both the American withdrawal and Iraq's promises to bring every armed group under state control are supposed to become reality. And that's a deadline the entire region will be watching closely. This is Shivangi Mukherjee for India Abroad.